Spuria is the worst fucking operator to ever exist in Arknights, and here's why. 1. She loses HP every second. 2. She has about a 25% chance to stun targets. Wait. Spuria is one of two geeks in Arknights, meaning her subclass identity is just whatever similarities she shares with Ak. Firstly, they are basically marksmen who don't prioritize air. They shoot a bit slower and have a bit more attack, but functionally they are the same. The biggest difference between them and marksmen is their method of dishing damage. Marksmen either attack really fast or attack multiple dudes at the same time, or both. Geeks, like the average gacha consumer, rely entirely on random outcomes to get through the day. Spuria's talent gives her a 70% chance to do one of three things: either to stun her target for 1 second, hit twice in a row, or ignore 80% of the enemy's defense. Each one of these triggers has about a 23% chance of occurring on each attack. Ak has a similar talent, except with 4 effects that are guaranteed to trigger. With her module, Spuria gains a 15% damage boost whenever one of her triggers hit. Geeks consume 3% of their max HP per second as per their trait. Why? Fuck if I know, gotta do something, just to make sure that they're not just marksmen, but classified as specialists. But finally, the most important element of their identity, their self-sabotage support skills. Spuria's S2 gives herself and the nearest sniper operator a 30% attack boost and a 40 attack speed boost, with the downside of that operator having a 20% chance to stun themselves whenever they attack for 1.8 seconds. So translated into English, what does that mean? Well, a 30% attack boost and a 40 attack speed boost are equivalent to an 82% DPS boost to both herself and her target. The only downside is that every time that operator attacks, there's a 20% chance to be stunned for 1.8 seconds. Now, there are 3 main reasons why people think this skill is bad. 1. Warfarin's S2 is a 90% DPS boost with no downside. 2. Spuria can only target snipers, whereas Warfarin can target anyone. 3. Self-sabotage makes the skill unusable. Firstly, Warfarin's skill is a 60-second cycle, while Spuria's is also a 60-second cycle. It's just that Spuria has an extra 5 seconds of uptime compared to Warfarin. Does that make a difference? I mean, yeah, but it mainly just kind of makes up for the slight DPS difference. Geeks, though, do have a trait change with their module that gives them an extra 0.25 SP per second when they're above 80% HP. So if your Spuria is constantly being healed, her S2 can charge 8 seconds faster. Now, this can be compared to Warfarin's talent, which gives her bonus SP whenever an enemy in range dies. Spuria is more consistent, but Warfarin can potentially charge herself quicker depending upon the stage. I'm not picking sides here, just showing the nuances. Warfarin also has the fun of her target being completely random. If you want consistent Warfarin use, you can't have any other operators in her range except the operator you want to buff. Otherwise, you run the risk of her buffing the wrong operator. And since you have to make sure your ideal target is the only thing in range, Warfarin will do nothing but heal and give SP to that one operator, no one else. Gigachad Spuria, on the other hand, will always prioritize the sniper in front of her and closest to her, meaning that her targeting is incredibly consistent. And even if she isn't buffing, she is still attacking. Remember, geeks are basically supportive marksmen. You're still able to take advantage of her decent damage output and her stuns. I'm not saying that Spuria is better than Warfarin, but what I am trying to say is that neither is direct upgrade to the other. Both have their upsides and downsides, and what you choose is up to you. Spuria only being able to target snipers is definitely a downside, but I personally don't really mind. Crushers are busted enough, they don't need even more power. Plus, we already have someone who can take care of casters, but that's a video for another day. Finally, Spuria's self-sabotage. It's no awking a not-so-innocent Wishadel user, but it's certainly something, right? Well, what if I told you this downside doesn't exist? Well, most of the time. Spuria's S2 stuns for 1.8 seconds after the operator attacks. However, the attack still goes through. This means the actual stun's duration happens during when the operator would already be in downtime. And on top of that, the time the operator stunned counts towards their next shot. Let's look at Totter. Totter's a besieger, meaning he has an attack interval of 2.4 seconds. Now, if he's being buffed by Spuria, there's a 20% chance he's stunned for 1.8 seconds. If this happens, Totter's shot still goes through, dealing its damage. Then he gets stunned. However, during the stun, that 2.4 second timer is still ticking. So once he comes to, he waits 0.6 seconds, then fires the next shot. So at that point, what's the point of the stun? The stun literally did nothing to him. And that's the same with all snipers with an attack interval over 1.8 seconds. If they get stunned, it won't interrupt their attack interval, meaning that the stun just simply doesn't exist. Even with heavy shooters and hunters, they go from 1.6 seconds to 1.8 seconds. The real downside is just a 0.2 second increase in attack interval. Now, these operators won't take full advantage of Spuria's attack speed boost when they are stunned, which does suck, but Spuria definitely doesn't handicap them. Here's a table of each subclass and how they're affected by Spuria's stun. The only subclasses that end up stunned for longer than their base duration are marksmen, heavy shooters, and hunters. Everyone will lose out on a bit of Spuria's attack speed boost with the exception of artillerymen and deadeyes. Their attack interval, even when buffed, doesn't overlap with the stun, meaning there is no downside period to using them, assuming they aren't buffed with any other attack speed buffs. Essentially, Spuria's stun ends up becoming a negligible downside for most sniper subclasses relative to the buffs that she gives. When using Spuria with Loopshooters or Marksmen, their typically low attack interval is going to trigger her stun more often, leading to more shots possibly being wasted during the stun time. However, there is a caveat that may still justify using some Marksman or Loopshooter skills. All Spuria's skills care about is when the attack becomes initiated. If there's a low attack interval due to a high attack speed, then there's more possible chances for Spuria's skill to proc. For example, Cruce the King Glint's S2 at Mastery 3 reduces her attack interval to 0.625 seconds. So over the course of 5 seconds, Cruce will attack 8 times. This means that there are 8 chances for her to possibly be stunned. Duh. But I didn't mention the fact that she hits twice in a row. That's because Spuria's talent doesn't care about that. Let's assume Exusiai's S2 is activated, meaning her attacks fire 4 times in a row every single attack. Even though she's basically firing 4 times as fast, it's 4 bullets per single attack, meaning all 4 shots only have a single chance of being triggered. The same logic applies to multi-targeting attacks like with Blue Poison or Vermeil. So if you use Spuria with a Marksman, possibly for some kind of Marksman burst strat, then multi-hit skills are the way to go. Finally, before I go, I want to bring up 2 interesting synergies with Spuria, where her stun makes the units better than if they weren't stunned: Cold Shot and Platinum. Cold Shot and Platinum both have talents that increase damage based on their attack interval. If Cold Shot doesn't attack for 2 seconds, her next attack deals 33%, 41% with mod, more damage. As long as Spuria isn't higher than Mastery 1, her skill stuns for 2 seconds, meaning that although the stun will slow down Cold Shot by 0.4 seconds, it triggers her talent, meaning Cold Shot's next attack will do significantly more damage. Platinum, on the other hand, gradually increases the damage of her next attack depending upon the interval, boosting it up to 200 or 210% with potentials. The max is reached at 2.5 seconds, so if she ends up getting stunned, you get about a 60% to 68% damage boost in her next attack. In the end, Spuria is far from a bad operator. She does the job she's supposed to do in a clever way. Dare I say, her restriction is actually easier to work around compared to Ak. Spuria requires the operator simply be a sniper, and although she does handicap Marksmen and Loopshooters a lot more than anyone else, you can still get some use out of that, whereas Ak requires the operator to have the physical stats of a defender, or to have enough HP to take 7,500 damage. But who could possibly do that? This might be